We're all born free and equal.
Don't discriminate.
These are your human rights. There are 30 of them. They belong to you. You don't have to buy them, or apply for them, or ask permission to have them. They're just yours. No matter who you are, where you're from, how old you are, or anything else. It's just that simple. Now, some people may try to ignore your rights, or violate them, or pretend they don't exist. But they can't change the fact that they're yours. Human right number 30. No one can take away your human rights. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
His Excellency President Meta of Albania, Her Excellency President Atifeti Jajaga of Kosovo, Her Excellency Dr. Amina Garib Fakim of Mauritius, Her Excellency Jewel Howard Taylor of Liberia, Baroness Sandeep Verma of the House of Lords in the UK, Senator Donzella James of the State Senate of Georgia in the USA, and Ambassador Josephine Ojambo, former Deputy Secretary General of the Commonwealth. All distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to this very important occasion on which we try to chart a way forward for the future of the girl child. We are all gathered here to celebrate the United Nations International Day of the Girl Child. Under the theme, My Voice, Our Eco-Future, we are trying to reimagine a better world for the girl child. We are trying to re-energize our fight for gender equality so that we may have the girl child recognized, counted, and invested in. The year 2020 is very important in the global feminist movement. It brings together a confluence of anniversaries. To begin with, it is 101 years of the women's vote in the United Kingdom. It is also 100 years of the women's vote in the United States of America. 2020 also marks 75 years since the United Nations was started. It also marks 64 years of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. 2020 also marks over 40 years since the historical United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, otherwise known as CEDAW. It also marks 25 years of the United Nations Fourth Conference on Women, which resulted in the declaration of the Beijing Platform for Action. It is 20 years since the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 on Women, Peace and Security. And of course, it's 10 years since UN Women was started, and we are 5 years into the Sustainable Development Goals. In Africa, we also have a confluence of anniversaries in 2020 in the women's movement. It marks over 26 years since the Pan-African Congress that was held in Kampala that highlighted the importance for women's rights. It is 16 years since the historical Maputo Protocol, the African Charter on the Rights of Women in Africa. It is also 10 years since the Gender is My Agenda campaign, and also, of course, 10 years which takes us to the conclusion of the Decade for the African Woman, and 5 years, of course, since the African Union declared 2015 as the year of the empowerment of the African woman. So what are we doing with all these anniversaries, all these initiatives and affirmative actions, and yet we are still here fighting for gender equality? In 2014, I launched a report by Plan International called Because I Am a Girl. The report looks at the welfare of girls around the world, and the statistics in that report broke my heart to realize that the girl child was still lagging so far behind the boy child in the 21st century, together with all the other negative human and development indicators that were stated in that report, including the fact that out of the 500 FTSE companies, only 25 were led by female CEOs. In 2015, I went to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women in New York, which reviewed 20 years of the Beijing Platform for Action. I was surprised to find myself marching in what was yet again called a March for Gender Equality. I left New York and came to London feeling very sad, because I am a mother to a millennium baby. My daughter was born in the year 2000 at the beginning of the millennium. And also that was the time when the world embarked on the very ambitious Millennium Development Goals, which put gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls at its core. And 2015, we were concluding the Millennium Development Goals, and there we were marching once again for gender equality. As I looked to go into the Sustainable Development Goals, I looked at my baby who was a teenager now. And I thought by 2030, at the conclusion of the Sustainable Development Goals, she will be 30 years old. She and her peers will be the adults. They will be the managers. They will be the political and business leaders. They will be the decision makers and the policy makers. And what position would the girl child born at the beginning of the millennium hold at the conclusion of the Sustainable Development Goals? And it occurred to me that if we are going to be using our feet to march for gender equality, we will forever be marching on our feet for gender equality. I decided that I didn't want to see my daughter and her peers, my millennium baby, and her peers born at the beginning of the millennium, marching for gender equality in 2030. I decided that should they still find the need to fight for gender equality, they should march with their head, their mind. They should use their mind, an enlightened mind, a mind fully equipped with the right knowledge, the right education, the right skills, the right tools, and of course, the right global power networks to help them compete on equal footing with their male counterparts. We are here to try and reimagine a better world for the girl child. Therefore, we need to leave a legacy that empowers the girl child to be able to navigate an ever-changing global landscape in the political, economic, and social arena, so that she can be able to walk on equal footing as her male counterparts. Thank you very much for coming out today to help us articulate the future that the girl child wants, the future that we want to live for our children. Director of UNESCO once said, "The world we leave to the children depend on the children we leave to the world." As we live here today, we have to think, what kind of a world are we leaving to the girl child that we have been fighting for gender equality for over 200 years since the beginning of the suffragist movement? That is what is at the center of our discussions today. Thank you very much.
Human rights is, geez, that's a good question.
Human rights. Well, that's a tough one.
Wow.
I don't even know how to give that a definition.
I would probably have to do a little bit of homework or something.
Yeah, any right that I think just as a normal, human,
The rights that humans have.
Oh, that's a very large debate.
Tú le puedes preguntar a 20 personas y te van a dar 20 diferentes opiniones.
Non saprei, è una domanda complicatissima.
Yes, we just take them for granted that they're there, but we don't even consider what they are.
Human rights are the rights you have simply because you're human. It's how you instinctively expect and deserve to be treated as a person, like the right to live freely, to speak your mind, and to be treated as an equal. There are many kinds of rights. Most apply to a certain group. But human rights are the only ones that apply to absolutely everyone, everywhere. That means kids, old people, poor people, basketball players, garbage men, rappers, teachers, Africans, Indians, Albanians, Christians, Muslims, Kabbalists, atheists, your mom, your dad, your next door neighbor, and you all have the exact same human rights. In other words, they're universal. But the question remains, what are they?
Name the human rights?
What the human rights are?
The right to live.
Equality between all peoples.
Right to religion, the right to...
Is there supposed to be a list somewhere I should be aware of?
According to the United Nations, there are a total of 30 human rights, which are usually lumped together and called simply human rights. They're all listed out in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is the world's most widely accepted document on the subject. But it was a long time in coming. At first, there were no human rights. If you were in with the right crowd, you were safe. If you weren't, well, you weren't. But then a guy named Cyrus the Great decided to change all that. After conquering Babylon, he did something completely revolutionary. He announced that all slaves were free to go. He also said people had the freedom to choose their religion, no matter what crowd they were a part of. He documented his words on a clay tablet known as the Cyrus Cylinder. And just like that, human rights were born. The idea spread quickly to Greece, to India, and eventually to Rome. They noticed that people naturally followed certain laws, even if they weren't told to. They called this natural law, but it kept getting trampled on by those in power. Not until 1,000 years later in England did they finally get a king to agree that no one can overrule the rights of the people, not even a king. People's rights were finally recognized, and they were now safe from those in power. Kind of. It still took a bunch of British rebels declaring their independence before the king got the point that all men are created equal. Which isn't to say he liked the idea, but he couldn't stop them, and America was born. The French immediately followed with their own revolution for their own rights. Their list was even longer, and they insisted that these rights weren't just made up. They were natural. The Roman concept of natural law had become natural rights. Unfortunately, not everyone was so thrilled. In France, a general named Napoleon decided to overthrow the new French democracy and crown himself emperor of the world. He almost succeeded, but the countries of Europe joined forces and defeated him. Human rights was again a hot topic. They drew up international agreements, broadly granting many rights across Europe. But only across Europe. The rest of the world somehow still didn't qualify. Instead, they got invaded, conquered, and consumed by Europe's massive empires. But then a young lawyer from India decided enough was enough. His name was Mahatma Gandhi, and in the face of violence, he insisted that all people of Earth had rights, not just in Europe. Eventually, even Europeans started to agree. But it wasn't going to be that easy. 2 world wars erupted. Hitler exterminated half the Jewish population of Earth in horrifying Nazi death camps. And all told, 90 million people died. Never had human rights been so terrifyingly close to extinction. And never had the world been more desperate for change. So the countries of Earth banded together and formed the United Nations. Their basic purpose was to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person. But what were human rights? Were they the proclamations of Cyrus, the natural laws of Rome, the declarations of France? Everyone seemed to have a slightly different idea of what human rights should be. But under the supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt, they finally agreed on a set of rights that applied to absolutely everyone. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The French concept of natural rights had finally become human rights. So, in summary, at first, only a few lucky people had any rights, until one of those guys decided, hey, other people should have some rights too, which was great, except not everyone agreed. And it only took a few thousand years of fighting and declarations and more fighting until everyone finally agreed that human rights should apply to everyone. And they all lived happily ever after. Except for one little problem. If people have the right to food and shelter, why are 16,000 children dying of starvation every day? 1 every 5 seconds. If people have freedom of speech, why are thousands in prison for speaking their minds? If people have the right to education, why are over 1 billion adults unable to read? If slavery has truly been abolished, why are 27 million people still enslaved today? More than twice as many as in 1800. The fact is, when it was signed, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights did not have the force of law. It was optional. And despite many more documents, conventions, treaties, and laws, it's still little more than words on a page. So the question is, who will make those words a reality?
I have a dream today.
When Dr. King marched for racial equality, he was marching for rights that had been guaranteed by the United Nations for almost 2 decades. But still, he marched. When Nelson Mandela stood up for social justice in the 1990s, his country had already agreed to abolish such discrimination for almost 40 years. But still, he fought. Those who fight today against torture, poverty, and discrimination are not giants or superheroes. They're people. Kids, mothers, fathers, teachers. Free-thinking individuals who refuse to be silent. Who realize that human rights are not a history lesson. They're not words on a page. They're not speeches or commercials or PR campaigns. They are the choices we make every day as human beings. They are the responsibility we all share to respect each other, to help each other, and to protect those in need. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home. So close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere.
Indeed, human rights are not history lessons. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and bonjour from wherever you are joining us from in the world. Welcome to the Justina Mutale Foundation's World Summit on Women and Girls, celebrating the 2020 United Nations International Day of the Girl, passing the torch towards 2030 under the theme, My Voice, Our Equal Future. My name is Fatoumata Diallo. I am the founder of the Minute Factor with Fatoumata Diallo, coming very soon. And also, I am your program host for this morning. Now, up next, it is my honor to introduce Her Excellency, President Atifete Jahjaga, President of the Republic of Kosovo from 2011 to 2016, who will deliver our first keynote address this morning. I would like to remind that Her Excellency President Atifete Jahjaga was the first female head of state in the modern Balkans and also the youngest female world leader to be elected to the highest office. Your Excellency, the stage is yours.
Dear Brian, dear participants of this discussion, thank you very much for joining us today in this virtual discussion. I hope all of you are safe and sound during these very trying times. I believe that Mr. Ingram has introduced you with my biography shortly, and I would like to share with you my story, even though in approximately 10 minutes, where I will try to compress 20 years of experience, so bear with me. Running a nation is never an easy task, but running a newly independent one is even tougher. I took office in the third year of Kosovo statehood, 12 years after the liberation. Kosovo at the time was faced with many challenges, building and consolidating its institutions, growing its economy, and integrating in the international scene as an equal entity with all other states. Two of my predecessors had resigned the presidency because of violation of constitution, and I was elected as the consensual candidate with a vast majority from all the parties. This made my responsibility even more difficult right at the beginning. I had to unify the political scene and play my constitutional role as unity of the people at a turbulent time for Kosovo. Not to mention the fact that the pressure of being the first woman president in the southeastern part of Europe and the youngest one in the world made it even more challenging, as I had to prove that women are as capable as men to lead nations, not to say more capable. I was someone who did not come from the rank of the politics, and I was rather new to this world. I came from the career of the public servant in Kosovo police, where I held the rank of the General Lieutenant Colonel. This in itself is self-explanatory. And to what difference these roles have? Being a general, your decisions are executed, and being a president, you'll have to balance everything and respect those who oppose your decisions. However, I built a great team around me, and we started working right away. There was a lot of stigma surrounding women back then, and to some extent that stigma is present even today. Women are not seen fit for the leadership position, and our decision-making tables are full of men taking decisions on behalf of the women. Having this in mind, I immediately start talking and taking an active role in promoting the rights of the women, especially those of the victims of the domestic abuse and those who survived the sexual violence in the Kosovo War. Marginalized groups and young people were among core pillars of my decision-making also. And Kosovo has had many challenges in building in its institutions. The country had been under the administration of United Nations up until we declared our independence in 2008. And since then, and up to until 2011, when I took the office, the country has had a supervised independence from International Civilian Office. And afterwards, Kosovo's institutions have had the entire responsibility in running the country. This meant that I had to maintain the balance between all the parties involved, from the government to the opposition to the minority communities, and above all, I had to make sure that women representation was indeed respected in all the levels. And Kosovo has introduced quotas for women representation in the parliament since the first election held after the war back in 2000. The current quota is around 30%, and this has been essential in having a strong women representation in our legislative branch, especially in the first years after the war, when a patriarchal mentality was still very dominant in our society. And now I can proudly say that this quota is not the reason why we have women MPs, as the majority of them have managed to get and to be elected on their own, and we have witnessed this in the last Kosovo's elections. Unifying the political scene is one of the most difficult tasks, especially when you consider that it is the role of the opposition to oppose the activities of the government and possibly see them fail, having their eyes in the next election. This makes the job of the head of the state and the president even more difficult, especially in the parliamentary democracy like is Kosovo. This, I consider it to be the most important part of my work as a president, bringing unity in the political scene and bringing them all to the table when important decisions had to be taken. And it required a lot of trust building among all the different actors of the political scene. But it is also important to remember, as well as remind others, that holding in public office is a great responsibility we have to the people that we serve. My presidency has been shaped by the turbulent period taking place in Kosovo. The government had a 2/3 majority in the parliament. However, the opposition was very vocal and active with the protests. As symbol of the unity of the people, I had to make sure that all sides had their voices heard, and in a fragmented political landscape that's not always an easy. And I was proud to be able to manage to do that. On the other hand, when reflecting back on my presidency, I remember the countless people of Kosovo I have met, and ordinary citizens, living a normal and at times a harsh life, people whom I would have probably never met if I didn't have that great privilege of being their president. I have been able to meet with some of the most talented and enthusiastic people who, despite the limited possibilities that my country has offered to them, have never stopped to think and to dream big. And another perk of being a president is the ability to give voice to those who would otherwise not be heard. People who struggle with problems and for whom the society doesn't necessarily do enough. And I am referring here to victims of the domestic violence, whose voices are repressed by their abusive partners, and whose families don't give them the support that they need and they deserve. And although Kosovo has put in place a very advanced legislation to protect them, the reality on the ground is that they fear to rise and to raise their voice out of fear that the police will not be there when they need them the most. They do not dare to speak up because they are afraid that their abusive husbands will take revenge when they are released. And as a president, I have also tried to be close to them in every step of the way. I have worked closely with all the relevant institutions and NGOs to make sure that these women have their voice heard, but most importantly, they feel safe in the hands of the state. Another category that I have worked closely with are the survivors of the sexual violence, who have been stigmatized by our society for so long. Those are women and men who have been raped during the wartime, where rape has been used as a tool of war, who have been and are suffering tremendously during and after the war. and have never been able to heal, as their wounds have remained open for so long. They have desperately needed someone to hear them, to talk to them, to support them, and to put in place mechanisms to help them move on. And most importantly, they needed to know that they are not a burden to our society, but they are, and they can be, an active part of our society. They needed to know that someone cared for them, and that someone was willing to raise this issue internationally and seek justice for them. So, my dear ladies and gentlemen, when I reflect my presidency, I think of these little things that I have managed to achieve. This might be little in the eyes of a leader, but they are gigantic in the eyes of those who have gone through these challenges. I have had the rare opportunity to serve my country and my people from the highest office of the land. I have been able to see things from a different perspective, and I have been able to address these issues that affect the day-to-day lives of so many. From a unique position, a position that has given me access to address the concerns of my people with all the relevant local, national, and international entities. So, going back to your question, the most valuable lesson I have learned from my time in office as the President of the Republic of Kosovo is the fact that everyone can come together, regardless of the differences among them. Everyone has the potential to be great and achieve anything they dream of, if they have the determination to achieve them, regardless of their national boundaries. Everyone needs to be heard and needs to feel free to share their concerns. Everyone needs justice to be served in order to close their wounds. And the best memories from my presidency are those that I spent with an ordinary people who strive to achieve great things in their lives. People who do not stop in the face of challenges. People who don't see difficulties in everything they do. I know that sometimes when seeing the world around us, it is difficult to keep going, as we see injustice everywhere. As a woman, this is very especially difficult, as we have to overcome challenges and break glass ceilings in almost every step of the way in growing in our career. But I know that the moment we stop being optimistic is the moment we have allowed others to win over us. And for this, Winston Churchill quote, "The pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity, and optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty," is a saying, and I did hold dear to me. One that has kept me motivated and going on in every challenge I have faced. So I thank you for this opportunity.
Leading Ladies, a Zambian podcast on historical women leaders. The assumption is women in our past have had no military abilities or skills. History shows women have had experience with military skills and have fought in many wars. This is the story of the general. Mwape, Muchinga Province, 19th century. Changwe Mwape II, daughter to Namukwanga Mwape I, was undoubtedly the most remarkable woman of her time. Mwape ruled the Ambo people of present-day Muchinga Province. Her own chieftaincy comprised the Middle Wangwa and the Chuambira Valley and further east. During her reign, Mwape extended her authority from the Mulembo to the Musanzara, a kingdom twice as large as any Ambo chief had aspired to. The Chikunda slave salt and ivory traders, under the leadership of Portuguese José de Ranjo Lobo, also known as Matekenya, wanted to impose their influence and gain economic dominance by controlling trading routes through Ambo country. Mwape declared war on the Chikunda and every Ambo chief who supported them. In order to wage her wars, Mwape organized a bold and daring attack on the armory of the Chikunda, and at another time seized the entire consignment of arms from a passing Portuguese trader and amassed enough guns and gunpowder. At one point, when she was out of gunpowder, Mwape escaped with her daughters to a place near present-day Chinsali, where she regrouped and then returned to her land. On return from her exile, Mwape continued her numerous battles and extended her influence, protected her people, and imposed her control on the trade routes in her land. Mwape was never defeated, and by the time of her death in 1910, Mwape reigned over the Milambo, Lukusashi, and Noa Luangwa. To the east of the Luangwa, she controlled the Nyamazi Valley. Women have fought and been victorious in wars.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Good midag. Assalamu alaikum to those of you. Now, some highlights that I picked from President Atifeti Jahjaga is everyone has the potential to be great and they dream of if they have the determination and to achieve regardless of their boundaries. Now, ladies and gents, before I open the floor to our first panel, I would like to invite every single one of you, dear participants, to get loud on social media. So pick up your tweet as much as you can. Hashtag GMF leadership. Now, ladies and gents, our first session this morning is on to empower and prepare both women and girls with resilient mindset to take up leadership roles. Now, this incredible panel will be moderated by Nana Churcher, who is the executive producer and host of the Nana Churcher Show. Now we have a great line of speakers, including members of parliament, business leaders, and
Thank you very much, Fatimuta. It looks like we are losing your audio over there. So yes, our next panel, as my colleague just mentioned, is going to be a vibrant panel consisting of Her Majesty Queen Zainab, and other keynote speakers as well. So I believe we will be having one after the other speakers joining us for the panel. Currently, we do have Dr. Neetu Singh, Secretary General, World Peace and Diplomacy Organization, India. So welcome, Dr. Neetu Singh.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So we are going to know more about your insight to do with the thinking beyond the possible, passing the torch to empower and prepare women and girls with resilient mindsets to take up leadership roles. So please enlighten us with your vision on that.
Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to all of you there. Dear distinguished guests, Her Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear friends. A very, very, very thank you so much for giving me an opportunity from India. It's a great commitment, enthusiasm, and determination to make a difference for girls. And thank you to all the girls who are here and beyond listening to us and working with us. I would like to start very thank you to Her Excellency Dr. Justina Michale for bringing us together to celebrate the constellation of women and women leaders from around the world on the occasion of International Day of Girls, which aims to giving a big push for women to be granted equal and full voice participation and leadership everywhere and in every aspect, and for making the case that we need essential role of woman courage. Vision and achievement realizes humanity's noble and vital projects of sustainable development and security. We celebrate today this group of formidable women leaders committed to the implemental United States to 2030 agenda of sustainable development and to the peace and securities in the countries beyond in this interdependent and complete linked world. They have demonstrated through their life and their leadership in governance, diplomacy norm, and political game changing for the leader equality, women's empowerment, and that women make a difference, not just small difference, but a big critical one. I would like to just give a small thing that, I'm so honored that when my daughter was born, I was at an instance cried because she was a woman. She was a girl born to me. And I was very much upset for an instance, for a moment that, oh my God, it's a girl. And how I will handle it. I actually needed a boy just because of this one thing, that is inequality that we have in Indian society. But now I am so proud that I have my first child as a girl. I feel so empowered because she is a strong pillar behind my success. She is the one who is handling my house, and she takes care of all my necessary things. Because of her, somewhere I'm so glad that I could work. My second child is a male child, a son, and I'm so glad that she takes care of my son. So this here I actually get a thing, would like to say that we are the one who actually change the world. We are the one who actually create the myth that a girl child is important or a male child is important. So we first have to understand that there's a amalgamation that we have to do, that girl child needs to be empowered more, needs to be motivated more, needs to be appraised again and again, so that she comes forward, she participates, and she does her best. So thank you. These are my words that I would like to tell you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Neetu Singh. And I completely agree with you that there is a lot of work needed to be done in subcontinent of India. Having said that, I know that India has got the maximum number of women pilots in the world. So it's getting there. Yeah, and also the mission, the probe which was sent to Mars, Mangalyaan, was headed by a team of women scientists. So, and it had one of the first Prime Minister as well, Indira Gandhi. So, but a lot to do, a lot, not just for India, but many of the other countries surrounding the subcontinent, within the subcontinent, they need to do a lot as well. So what we need to understand, we saw the human rights video as well, that we all have the same human rights as human beings, whether you are a woman or you're a man, you're a boy or a girl, you have the same rights and you have the same capabilities, perhaps even more. So I completely resonate with your thoughts. And I also have a girl, and you saw the performance at the beginning. So she is taking up a lot of my, yes, yeah. So she's 20, and she's yeah. So it is. It's so important that we encourage. We have this frame of mind, as President from Kosovo as well reiterated, that it's not easy for women to break the glass ceiling. We need to recognize our potential, and we go beyond our, the constraints which are laid out to us. And we need to think beyond it, as Dr. Justina Mutai said at the beginning as well as the keynote speech, that there's a lot to be done in attaining the UN 2030 goals. Already, how many years have passed since the goals were set up, and where are we at the moment? So exactly, yeah. So as Fatimuta said as well, that these goals, very ambitious goals, 17 goals we have to end poverty, combat climate change, and achieve gender equality and women's empowerment. Oh, we have one more guest over here, CEO from India, from the sustainability perspective, Samit Ayich. Please join our panel over here and fire away your insights. We would love to have a man's view.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Before I start, I thought I'll let you know how insecure I'm feeling as one of those very few men, perhaps, not just in this panel, but in the conference. And I feel a bit scared talking about it, but I still have a few things to say in the topic. So I did hear Dr. Neetu Singh talk about her perspectives in India. And from the Indian perspective, I think I'd like to take a step back and, I'd like to talk about the fact that the panel title seems to already indicate that women in general are not empowered or not prepared to take up leadership roles. That can be true, but I think that's also untrue in many ways, especially in not so much in the first world countries, but mostly in countries like India, which is a large subcontinent, where we have seen that there are women who play very powerful roles, but in an informal setting, you see. So, and because I come from a sustainability background where I've worked with communities, and I have worked with both CEOs and also worked with communities. So in a certain way, I have perhaps a little understanding, and I'm not saying I'm an expert on this, it's just my experience on how I see the world through my own eyes, where for every astronaut, every pilot, Mita, the one you talked about, or the pilots you talked about, there are countless women who play enormous leadership roles in the villages, in the village councils, in the rural settings without having formal power. And I think that is a very important lens to have. So I think we need to think contrarian in the way we define leadership roles, and we talked about empowerment and preparing women. I think women are already prepared. We need to move away from this notion of individual leadership, that one prime minister, that one parliamentarian, to look at community leadership, where women come together and give it a fight, a proper fight to all the men in those villages, in those groups, and fight for their rights. So I think we have to move beyond individual notions of leadership to collective notions of leadership. The second alternative contrarian view I'd like to add is we should refrain from looking at things from the urban setting and look at the rural setting. In my country, where I come from and where Neetuji comes from, a good 60 to 70% people live in the villages, and a good 55% of that are women. So you have to understand that, I'm not saying you're not understanding, but I think we need to be careful of the fact that leadership empowerment is not in the realm of air-conditioned five-star hotels or CEO suites. It's in the realm of sitting under trees in villages. And I do not want to romanticize what I'm saying. I'm saying which is the hard truth, that people, women, communities discuss this, challenge the citadels and the forts that men have built around themselves, break them every day, fight for community rights, fight for water, fight for sanitation, and that's leadership. And there are enormous examples in our country, at least, which is 1.2 billion people, by the way, which is a significant part of this world's population, where leadership is already there. They don't need to be empowered. We don't need to be condescending about it. We just need to give them their rights, which were denied to them in the first place. And then we are on the same plane. So I'm urging this group and this panel to think a bit contrarian. Look, don't just look urban, look at rural. Don't look at individuals, look at communities, and don't look at formal settings and look at informal settings. And get a complete 180-degree view of what we mean by women's leadership. But I'll pause over here and I'll give it back to the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Samit. That was very good insight. And I would like to now, we have very less time to hand over to our next panelist. Could I ask Nana Churcher to please give your views, please.
My views
on this topic.
On this topic, I think every woman out there should be given that opportunity to, women are so powerful. Women, we embodied everything, but sometimes it's unfortunate that we're not given that access. And I believe that this summit that is going on is going to really enhance the importance of we as women and what we carry to be a blessing to the community, to our homes, and to the world.
Lovely, excellent. And I understand that we also have Mariam with us, and she's going to speak in French, and we have a wonderful translator, our own colleague from JMF, Fatimata is going to translate. So over to you, please, Mariam. Colleague from JMF, Fatimata is going to translate. So over to you, please, Mariam.
Good evening, everyone. Good morning.
Colleague from JMF, Fatimata is going to translate. So over to you, please, Mariam.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you
from
are.
JMF, Fatimata is going to translate. So over to you, please, Mariam.
Thank you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on
Colleague
where
from
you are.
JMF, Fatimata is going to translate. So over to you, please, Mariam.
Thank you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon,
Colleague
depending on
from
where you are.
JMF, Fatimata is going to translate. So over to you, please, Mariam.
Thank you. Good morning, good evening. My name is Mariam Jakite, President and Managing of the
There seems to be a technical hitch. If you could just bear with us as we rectify this.
Yeah, sure.
So, Nana, you were talking about how women need to be empowered and how we need to work as a community. Could you give us any examples where you've experienced positive female leadership?
Of course, we have a lot. In nowadays, thankfully, we have the Michelle Obamas. We have the Oprah Winfrey's. I'm in media, so I look up to powerful women like Oprah Winfrey, where she's using her platform to tell the world what is happening in the community. And I believe that in each and every one of us, in whatever field that we are, we have to be mentors. We have to go out and look for these young ladies that starting from our daughters, in schools, our nieces, teaching them and instilling wisdom and wisdom is I would just land on wisdom, because with the wisdom and education that they need, they will be able to also grow up to be, where maybe we started and we couldn't fit in. We can use that to help them to get to the point that they will empower the world.
Fantastic. As a member of the Justina Matali Foundation, the PR and Communications Manager, I have noticed that a lot of young women are looking for mentors, and they're looking for people that they can aspire to. Do you know of any like programs or anything that could help a young lady that has logged in, that where she could, embrace what Mr. Summit said about community leadership for those that are in the Western society, those in the rural society? How can they come together and create this, platform where they can, do the leadership?
Well, we have that's why we have the internet. We have networking events going on around the world. The best thing, and then most of us are also on social media. I mean, with the Justina Mutila Foundation, I know you do programs that help young ladies that they can get more information to join in. I live in Enfield, so in Enfield there are networking events that go on, that from time to time is put out there. I tweet about it. I put it on my platform that people can get on. Normally, I would tell ladies that let's say if you want to be in the entertainment industry, look out for the people that are doing great. Follow them. Sometimes if you have to email them and say, hey, I would love for you to mentor me, some really come back and say, hey, of course, I would love to do that. If it's engineering, look out for people that are in your field, really, and then follow them, reach out to them, and then take it from there. We in this generation, we are so privileged to have almost everything out there for us. It's just if you don't want to, but if you really do, there is the information out there for you to follow.
Fantastic. Mr. Simit, do you have any points that you could contribute from the male perspective?
It's difficult, but let me try. I think it's very important that you folks, as we move away from this mindset that men have to give you rights and have to give you those empowerments to move on. I think those rights in most countries which are not banana republics, but countries which are democracies, which have very strong governance system, the constitution of that country gives women equal rights anyway, right? And it's important, therefore, to assert those rights, right? And ensure that what is legitimate is given, and if not so, women, and there are examples, like I said, where women come together and assert their rights. It could be in the parliaments, it could be under the tree in the small villages.
Yes.
And there are numerous examples. I can talk about 5 organizations in India who are extremely effective, extremely powerful, run by women. Right? There is, for example, this organization called Seva, Self-Employed Women's Association, which is a trade union, which was set up by a woman called Ila Bhatt in 1977. She eventually got the Ramon Magsaysay Award many years back, and she has done a remarkable work, starting with trade unions, working with textile women who used to be in the textile labor, unorganized, getting to their rights. It's a formidable force. They have their own banking institution today. They run their own women's cooperatives, and they're a force to reckon with. And because of the volumes and numbers, they're also a voting magnet for the politicians.
Yes.
So I think it is very important to look at those examples where thousands and thousands of women come together, but also look at the smaller examples where 10 women come together and set up a small self-help group, organize themselves, and get resilient. Because for every woman who gets resilient and every woman who gets independent, an entire family is saved. Not one woman, a family of 5 gets saved. Because women they don't, in general, I'm saying, and there's enough research and studies where when money comes in the hands of women in a household, it gets far better utilized for health, for education, right? For the basics, whilst the men will go out and do many things which are not conducive for rearing a small family. And therefore, I think these are all examples, and I can talk about more. But in agriculture, in sanitation, in trade unions, in self-help groups, enormous examples are there, not just in India, but in many parts of the world. Look at Bangladesh. Look at Bangladesh, the Grameen Bank, right? The biggest example of how microfinance became so successful with using women.
Yes.
So you don't need to, women don't need to be empowered, they're empowered, right?
Yes.
You need to assert your rights and get back on the same plane where you can challenge men, and men won't like it. I don't like it when my wife challenges me, by the way. But then I have to accept the fact that she is an equal person in this entire debate, and she is an epitome of all the women in this country and all the women in this world. And I have to give her the respect because I do that. I respect all the women in the world, and that should come from men also.
Yes. So that's fantastic. So like Nana was saying, that reach out to your community, use your digital platforms. And Mr. Simit is saying, you know what, it all starts at home, you know, in your small communities, and know that it's inside you anyway. You don't need to be empowered. You just need to know your confidence. You need to know your value and how you can contribute to society. So Dr. Nito, we want your input as well, because a lot of girls are logged in, and they want to know, you know, how you have moved yourself through leadership. So could you also contribute to the conversation as well?
Yes. See, I would definitely like to add on that the government and several NGOs are making efforts to empower women by creating awareness. The government is running a large number of projects for educational and skill development for women so that they can get economic independence. Thinking of society is also changing slowly. More and more number of women are getting a quality education, but the true meaning of women empowerment will be achieved when gender inequality will be eliminated, and that is only possible then we all come forward. Most of the urban people have come forward undoubtedly, as mentioned by Mr. Smith. But then, as we're talking about the rural sector, there's major steps have to be taken. Women need to be now given more education, given more skill development based knowledge and education, where she could be empowered, she could be independent, she could be earn, she could be economical independent. And I think if there we are playing a major role, we could be a more better and independent nation. Thank you.
Okay, we've got somebody that's just entered. Welcome to the summit.
Thank
Could
you.
introduce yourself to everybody?
Oh, my name is Ibinabo Fiberesima. I am Nigerian, though I'm in the UK right now. And I used to be the president of the Actors Guild of Nigeria, which is a male-dominated guild. I mean, everybody in leadership was male until I came out. And I know what I went through before I won. So I'm happy to be here. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. So as Dr. Nito was saying, that in the rural areas, you know, we need to all come together. We need to work on, you know, building our skill sets, working with partnerships to move things forward. So what do you feel needs to be done, especially in the film industry, male dominated? What do you feel a woman needs to do to elevate herself and move forward in this type of industry that you are in?
Well, in the film industry in Nigeria, well, in Africa right now, I think the women are more assertive. I think we're actually doing a lot better than the men, than the male folk. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be. But I think we have put our foot down and we have told ourselves we can do this. Because like I said, when I came out to run for the position of the president of the Actors Guild, it was like, is she mad? Is she going crazy? How does she think? I had like 5 male contestants, but I was determined, and I knew that I could deliver more. I could take the guild to a better place, and I did. And so my legacy is still on, even if someone else has taken over me. You see my members still saying, "Oh, we wish when Ibinabo was here, when Madam President was here, this happened when Madam President." So for us, I think we should believe in ourselves more, and we should be more assertive. We have, though, in Nigeria. I know the women in the film industry have taken over, and so the men are trying to catch up with us now to come in.
So Nana, do you have any points? Do you echo, because you're also from a similar background?
Yeah, I just love her. I love the way they say. You see, it's all starts with the mindset, and I think wonderful gentleman also said, the mindset. If you know who you are and you know who you represent, when you come out, you deliver. You don't wait for people to tell you. And I love the way my sisters, you say, even I'm not there, but people were saying, I wish she was here. We wish she was there. So for me, when I'm mentoring or when I'm telling these young ladies, I say the winning start from your mind. You've got to win in your mind before the world sees you win. So we've got to tell our young ladies, our nieces, our aunties, our cousins, that if you win in your head, no matter where you're going, the challenges, the competitions, because you have already won in your mind. When you step out, you are winning already, and that builds that resilience that we are talking about. But it's got to start with your mindset. And I was listening to a tape that talked about the lion and the other animals, and it says the lion is not as big as the hippopotamus or the elephant and all that, but because of the way he knows who he is, when the other animals see him coming, they see themselves as lunch to the lion. And so when you see yourself as a winner, when you see yourself as a great lady, when you see yourself that you can also dominate and do something with what you've got, then you will fly high.
Fantastic. So the common denominator from everybody is that you need to believe in yourself, and it all starts with your mindset, and you need to have that vision, and you need to have the right network and the right people around you to encourage you and mentor you. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have somebody that is, exuberant. It could be somebody, it could be your mother, it could be your sister, it could be your cousin, or it could be your teacher. But you need to make that choice, and you need to make a decision that you want to move up in leadership, and find those networks and ask people, can you be my mentor? Somebody posted on YouTube that share your network. So everybody on this panel, if you could share your networks, the young people are asking. Okay, so
Michelle, can I add just one? And even our grandmothers,
yes,
the women empowerment started way, 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 way back, when the grandmothers will go to the farm, come back, cook, look after the grandchildren, sitting the children by the fireside. I'm from Ghana, so we sit by the fireside, they tell you the stories and all that, so yes, we are in a generation where we see the higher ranks, but it could be somebody that sometimes we don't see on social media. Sometimes we don't see them anywhere, but they've got that wisdom. So it's high time that we tell our young ladies that, you've got to listen. This generation, sometimes another thing is they have to listen. I know we have the social media and all that, but go to your mother, go to your grandmother, go to your auntie and listen to advice.
Absolutely.
And can I add something quickly?
Yes.
Not just on the film segment. Like for me, I'm an environmental activist. I see lots of young girls coming out now to speak about the environment, which is a very good thing. And you don't have to be celebrated just yet, or they haven't noticed you. Doesn't mean you should stop. Like in Nigeria, I see a lot of graduates and non-graduates coming out now to do environmental work, which is a fantastic thing, a platform that they will excel. And we Nigerians, I think the way we are taught in school growing up, we don't know how to express ourselves. But with this new generation, with social media, it's becoming a plus. So we should learn to, like she said, my sister from Ghana, listen and to our mothers and our grandmothers, our aunties. They are strong women. They all have been from generation. So we should learn a lot from them. And then add what's new in the new generation. So we can bond.
Merge together. Yes. Dr. Natu, do you want to add to our conversation in terms of India? Because we've had West Africa, so we would love to hear from your point of view.
I think before me, Mr. Samad wants to add something.
Okay, go ahead.
As he raised the hand, so I'll give the opportunity first to him, and then I'll start.
Don't be afraid.
I'm shivering. Thank you. Just a quick one, and maybe a quick response to a tangential point, to a point which Ms. Fibrissima made from the UK, because she comes from the film industry.
Very well, thank you.
And we come from a country which is of Bollywood, where there's a lot of song and dance and lots of money is being spent. Making films and watching films is a pastime. Unfortunately, it's a pastime for the men, because the women are out there working and slogging while the men are going and watching movies. But I'll keep the gender aside to the point I was making. The point I was making is, if you follow what's happening today, even in today's newspapers in India, you will see that Indian actresses, some of them, the top-notch actresses, making a very strong point that they do not get paid at the same level as the men superstars. Right? So
not in Africa.
Even in Bollywood, you will have this major yawning gap between the superstars who are men and superstars who are women, and the huge yawning divide in terms of how much they are paid. Point number one. The bigger point is, and Neetuji, if she watches films, she'll know that some of the biggest actresses today have started challenging this in the public domain, and they are being trolled on Twitter. They are being harassed on social media for making a point, for getting paid for an art, getting paid for something which is their art, but just not getting paid because they're women. And men are not liking the challenge. Men are not liking the challenge, and they get trolled. The men don't get trolled, the women get trolled. And therefore, Ms. Churcher, when you say that for every Oprah Winfrey you talk about, I can talk about very prominent women actresses who are really top-notch, but get paid 40% or 50% less just because of the gender. And that fight has to continue. And therefore, I was saying, Michelle, that this fight is not just in the villages, but it is in Mumbai also. And wherever you go, in the villages or in the cities, same problem. Gender, women, people being discriminated, and men don't challenge, including me. And that's a problem.
Fantastic. So we've just Anna has just come into the conversation, and I believe we're going to have somebody translating for her. Welcome.
I'm speaking English.
Oh, so that's sorry about that. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Anna Maria Rożek. I'm from Poland, and I had some technical problems to join you before, so I'm very sorry for being late. And actually, I was a member of Warsaw City Council from 2014-2018, and now I am a lawyer with my own legal practice in Poland. So today I would like to speak about from the girls leader to a woman politician who I believe I become. So I don't know, I can speak right now or?
Yes, please share your knowledge, please.
Yes, so I was thinking actually a lot about the leadership before, like when Justina Matala asked me to join the panel, and I was thinking about my story. So I grew up in the small city in Poland, which is actually like Poland B, and now we consider like Warsaw and other parts like more like Poland A, so they are like more developed. And in this point, I wasn't like from the rich or influential family, or I didn't have a straight A grade and other things, but I think I had something like spark in the eye, and I was very ambitious. So I was enough lucky that during this time when I was looking for my path, and I always have some kind of thinking that it would be so amazing that I could somehow change the world for a better place or have influence to make decisions who actually benefits the social life and people. And but I have no idea how to do it, you know. And my parents, they were also not in the politics. They couldn't help me. In the schools, I didn't have any kind of leadership programs or skills I could learn, like actually public speaking. I was very, very shy girl in this point, but I had a lot of thoughts that I would like to share, but no one gave me the tools how to do it. So I was enough blessed that on my path I met a person who was in this time a minister, and he was from my region. So he actually thought that it would be great to give me a real opportunity to learn from him and to develop myself. So that was the first time when I actually started to learn leadership skills from someone else. But as I know, a lot of girls like me, they grow up in the small cities, and any school, anyone provides them those tools. So they actually sometimes they never get an opportunity to shine their own light and to share their ideas with the world. So instead of glass ceiling, which we actually have, we have other things like people don't have the same opportunities in life. And I also, for me, it was actually a person who was a man, who was a politician in this time. And then he teach me a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, he passed away in the plane accident in 2010 with the president of Poland. So after that, I needed to make everything on my own, like from the beginning in the politics. But I was then in the law school, and I started in my first election in Warsaw, which was as district council. And actually, I did great. I had a great result and great campaign and everything, but I didn't get into. Because still in Poland, we have something like DONT method, which favorize people who actually are from not have the most votes, but all the list of the candidates get the most votes. So, so I lost the election. And it was actually a great thing which happened to me. I think you cannot never become very successful if you don't know how to lose. And sometimes, like we say, that millionaires become millionaires when they bankrupt for once. Then you really get your knowledge how the things work, and you actually understand that you can deal with your loss. So after that, I become a member of Warsaw City Council in very young age, and I think what was actually for me a kind of success that I was a very young girl, but I was the first person to get in such a young age to the city council who wasn't born in Warsaw. So for me, it's like giving, like showing the other girls from the small cities, they actually can do it. if they are enough active and they will be looking for the opportunities, they can try to minimize the gap and create for themselves an opportunities in this world. So now I was starting for another election because I thought that in city council I learned enough and I'm still young, so I should go for more challenges. And then it came a voivodeship. And here actually is, I also had a great result because almost 12,000 votes, but still I didn't get into. So hopefully I have a bright future ahead of me, but it's still there are some things which are not working as we want. But also in Poland, we don't have really those parades of women to be on the politician list. So I think like other countries like Netherlands or in Scandinavia, they're actually trying to minimize that and help women to succeed. Because also what I know from my experience, for me, the help to access the politician world came from the person who was a man. But during all my experience, which is actually almost 15 years in the politics, now I'm 31, any woman helped me. And then I start to thinking that, okay, we talk a lot about being really helpful to each other, to support, about the leadership, but all help I received in my life was actually from the man, not from the woman. So as a person who is in the legal field, I also, check the statistics that during in the world, a lot of lawsuits about the mobbing are women against women in the work field. So actually we are talking a lot about the men harassment and the men using their power over the woman. But actually what we are not talking about is that women can be really cruel to each other. And they don't give enough support. They see young girls as actually the competition, which someday exchange them. And actually, I think it's very good. I don't say that everyone has this mentality, and I also think it's changing. But I think for us, for example, being here, we all right now are successful and have this mentality and knowledge that we should support women each other. But I think our social responsibility here is that we should look for those girls who are maybe not the perfect on the paper. Maybe they don't have the greatest grades in the school, but they are really interested to do something. Yeah. They have the fire in the soul to really to work hard, and maybe they make some mistakes, maybe they lose some election, or maybe they lose some other things in life, but actually the hard things shape us. So I think it's very good to have those experiences, because then you can become a better leader. So I'm actually a person who thinks that we should look for young girls leaders in some environments that we wouldn't think about it. Because representing the people in the government is also representing different points of views. And my blessing was I was growing in the small city, which is Poland B. So I actually understand those challenges, which I wouldn't never understand being in Warsaw. Growing up.
Wonderful, Anna. Thank you so much for your valid points. And yes, we absolutely agree that there are some rough diamonds out there that don't necessarily have all the opportunities, and there could be some barriers getting into industries that they want to get into, such as politics and being a lawyer. And it's absolutely fantastic that you said that a man helped you to elevate. Your mentor was actually a male, and we had a campaign that ran around about 3 years ago, working with the UN, He for She. and there was a lot of promotion around men empowering women and opening the doors and bringing them into the boardroom. And you have given us an example that you're a testimony to that. I work for the British government civil service, and the person that gave me an opportunity into management was actually a male, and he gave me a lot of advice, because he's been in the game for a long time and he knows how it operates, and he was able to give me nuggets to move forward, to how to articulate myself and how to present myself. And everybody on the panel has expressed it's your network, it's believing in yourself, and it's reaching out for mentors. You make the decisions, you make the choices. You have to just focus and find the right path for yourself. I'm now going to introduce Fatimata. She's going to come on. Thank you so much for your points. I'm pretty sure the young girls, young boys, and those in the community are very happy for you to share your wisdom. Welcome, Fatimata. Could you just say that again? You were muted.
I just realized that. I was thanking you so much for your brilliant job, Michelle. You've done a fab job, and what a fantastic panel we had this morning. I think next we are waiting for Mariam Jakite, who's going to deliver her speech. There she is.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
So go ahead, Mariam Jakite. Mariam is joining us from Ivory Coast. She's the founder of DM Partners. She will introduce herself in French, and then I will do the translation in English. Thank you. Mariam, over to you.
Thank you, Fatoumata. My name is Mariam Jakite. I'm the managing director of DM Partners, and I'm from Mali, where, as you all know, most people are francophone. Therefore, I'm going to ask your permission to speak in French so my people can also participate in the conversation. La déclaration de Beijing a permis de nombreuses avancées pour les femmes à travers le monde. Le chantier reste cependant très vaste. Sur le continent africain, notamment en Afrique subsaharienne, les femmes tardent encore à affirmer leur leadership.
The Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action paved the way in advancing women's rights. While a lot of progress has been realized globally, an area for improvement lies in women's leadership in Africa.
Selon l'ONU Femmes, en 2019, les pays d'Afrique subsaharienne avaient en moyenne 23% de femmes parlementaires. Une amie me disait récemment que notre humilité est à la fois une bénédiction et un frein. Cette affirmation est le résumé parfait de la place des femmes dans notre société.
According to UN Women, Sub-Saharan Africa had on average 23% of women in parliament in 2019. And a friend of mine recently said to me, our humility is our blessing and also at the same time our curse. Now, this statement summarizes the plight of African women in their formal and informal leadership roles, both in political, economic, and social spheres of society.
La femme africaine est un leader né. La prise de décision, la gestion des biens et des personnes sont des aptitudes qui lui sont innées. Elle met volontiers à la disposition de sa famille, de sa communauté et de sa nation, à chaque fois que cela s'avère nécessaire.
The African women are natural-born leaders whose entrepreneurial skills and decision-making capacities greatly benefit their families, their communities, and their countries and continents as a whole.
Comment expliquer alors que les femmes africaines accèdent si rarement à des postes de responsabilité?
So how do we then explain that African women are so rarely or ever so rarely reach positions of responsibility in Africa?
L'une des raisons principales est l'éducation. La femme africaine est éduquée pour porter le poids de la société en toute humilité. Elles sont, comme j'aime à le dire, et comme l'a dit Michel tout à l'heure, comme des lionnes qui nourrissent et protègent la meute, mais laisse le lion s'enorgueillir du rôle de roi de la jungle.
Now, one of the main reasons to that problem is, first of all, education. African women are educated to carry the weight of the society with humility. They are, as you know, like I said, and also Michelle said, like lionesses who feed and protect the group while letting the lions take the full pride, the full title, or the full pride in the title of ownership of the kingdom of the jungle.
Elles n'ont pas ambition à accéder à des postes de décision qu'elles perçoivent souvent réservés aux hommes. Elles ont même tendance à fuir la lumière parce que la société leur enseigne qu'être trop vue, être trop ambitieuse ou trop briller peut être une mauvaise chose pour une femme. Et pourtant, il est nécessaire que les femmes réalisent que leur place est aussi sur les tables où sont prises les décisions. Les femmes africaines doivent être accompagnées, poussées afin qu'elles prennent conscience et assument leur leadership.
African women have not the ambition to gain access to decision-making bodies, which they often perceive as something that is reserved for men. At point, sometimes they tend to shy away from the light because the society has taught them that a woman shouldn't be too seen or too shiny or seen as too ambitious. However, it is necessary for women to realize that their place is at the table where the decisions are being made.
C'est dans cette optique que j'ai conçu Africa by Diam, un concept permettant que nos codes et nos cultures, ainsi que notre histoire, soient des atouts de leadership. En réalisant que tout les a préparés à être des leaders et que le monde se portera mieux si elle aussi participe aux décisions, la femme africaine de demain ne restera plus en arrière-plan.
It is with this in mind that I have designed Afriquette by Diam Partners, a concept that allows our culture, our cultural codes, and our history to be assets of leadership and management. By realizing that she too, by this, Maria meant the African women, that she too can contribute, and that the world will only be better if she too can participate in the decisions. The African women will no longer remain in the shadow.
Thank you.
Merci.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you, Mariam. This was really brilliant. Next, we are going to hear from 3 phenomenal women leaders. And the first of those 3 is Her Majesty Queen Zainab Otiti Obana from Nigeria, who will share with us her point of view and her experience in the fight for women and young girls.
Distinguished ladies, permit me to stand on our protocols. It is indeed an honor to be speaking alongside incredible women such as you. Unfortunately, the pandemic did not allow us the privilege to be physically present to see each other in the flesh, but because we owe it to ourselves to continue to push forward, regardless of the world situations, I'm so grateful that we are all able to do this. I would like to touch on a subject that is rarely talked about among the many issues we face as women and also our young girls. Emotional security. It is a matter that is very sensitive. Women and girls are the worst victims of emotional insecurity in most parts of the world today. From being victims of sexual abuse as children to generally being traumatized by societies with norms, which prevents their general ability to attain their full potentials as individuals. It is as if the world expects women to be robots with no feelings and no objections, to be good zombies that remain good and positive no matter what is thrown at them. But the stark reality is that this has not always been the case. So many women have become psychologically damaged as a result of emotional abuses. In 2018, the world went abuzz with the news of Zinhle Matidle, a South African woman who poisoned her 4 children to death. In 2019, the South African court sentenced her to 4 terms of life imprisonment, but nothing was said of the reason for her committing this act. Her husband and father of her 4 children had abandoned her for another woman, and she lost it. A lot of women are dealing with mental health issues, but they don't even know it. And if you come from Africa, where mental health is rarely emphasized on or taken seriously, you will see that so many women are mentally unstable. As a result of continuous or a long-term abuse, different people react in varying degrees and ways to emotional abuse. Some young girls have been raped and abused by fathers and uncles, beaten by boyfriends, and then forced to care for children by the irresponsible husbands who later abandoned them for other women, and then refused funds to establish businesses in order to earn money to raise these kids by the banks, because not only are they women, but also they have no male sponsors. To stand as guarantors, some of these women stood up to the challenges and rose to become champions. Others died or simply became psychologically unhinged and were forgotten. Terera Trent was another Zimbabwean woman who was not allowed to go to school in her home country, Zimbabwe, because she was a girl. While her brothers went to school, she was married off at an early age and had 5 children at an early age. But she had the opportunity when her family migrated to the United States of America. She resumed school despite abuses from her husband and eventually obtained a PhD. The foregoing shows that women are faced with this problem of a world which at every turn denies them the opportunity to self-actualization. This has become a fact of life. So while we continue to create awareness and help women to decide how to react to these issues and encourage our young girls to build strong characters and values, we hope to remind women of the need not to allow themselves be destroyed by circumstances. We must make it into the very fuel that will power us on the trajectory to success. History is filled with women who overcame. Sandra Day O'Connor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg overcame all discriminations to become female justices at the United States Supreme Court. Oprah Winfrey went from an abused teenager to the most successful media personality in the world. It all came about because these women decided to face their emotional distraught and convert them into success. In other words, they achieved emotional security. Emotional security I would define as part of the general strength of character that is known as resilience. Women need to be their own sources of inspiration. Get a little mirror and hang it on the wall. And whenever you look into it, tell the person that you see that she's the most beautiful, intelligent, and successful person that exists. We must remind ourselves always that we are indestructible and unstoppable no matter what comes. Do not let your spirit be killed. Let nothing put your light out. Give yourself the freedom to collaborate. Dream, be widely creative, share bold ideas, feel increased compassion. Do not chase an overnight perfection. Be realistic and improve yourself step by step. Concentrate on your strength, not weakness. Trust yourself. Think positive. Identify your negative thoughts and get rid of them. Do not blame yourself for unfortunate events. Learn something from them. Focus on your aims and hope for the best. Share your insecurities with people you are emotionally attached with. They will know how to help you once they understand you.
I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all the chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things that I should say. Say them loud, say them clear, for the whole wide world to hear. I wish I could share all the love that's in my heart. Remove all the bars that keep us apart. I wish you could see how it feels to be should be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live how I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things that I should do, and though it's way overdue, I'd be starting over new. I wish I could be like a bird that's in the sky. How sweet it would be if I learned that I could fly. I'd soar to the sun and up above the sea, and I'd sing 'cause I know, hey, and I'd sing 'cause I know, hey, and I'd sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free, hey, hey, how it feels to be free.
Good morning and bonjour to all participants of the World Summit on Women and Girls. My name is Natalia Kusendova. I am connecting with you from Canada, a country of 38 million people known for our igloos, hockey, maple syrup, poutine, and a prime minister who has very sexy hair, eh? But in all seriousness, Canada, I believe, is one of the best countries in the world, a peacekeeper among nations where justice, freedom, democracy, and the rule of law prevails. Canada and our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, enacted in 1984, gives all of our citizens fundamental rights and freedoms under the Constitution, such as democratic rights, mobility rights, legal rights, equality rights, and fundamental freedoms including freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of thought, freedom of belief, and freedom of peaceful assembly. These rights and freedoms are fundamental to the Canadian way of life and accorded to all citizens and residents of Canada, regardless of their gender, country of birth, religion, race, or sexual orientation. In Canada, men and women have equal rights under the lens of the government and the law. It is important to state this, as there are too many countries in the world where women are not viewed or treated as equal to men. But even in a country like Canada, much work still remains to put women at an equal footing as men. In Canada, the gender pay gap prevails such that women earn 87 cents to each dollar that men earn for the same work. The gap is even larger for racialized or Indigenous women. Women form about 50.5% of the Canadian population, yet hold only about 25% of elected office at various levels of government, municipal, regional, provincial, or federal. Which brings me to my first topic of discussion today, women's political participation. The glass ceiling. Does it exist? And why? In short, yes, the glass ceiling absolutely does exist and is alive and well in Western world politics. As some of you may know, I am an elected member of provincial parliament here in the province of Ontario, the largest of Canada's 10 provinces and 3 territories. I am the member of provincial parliament for Mississauga Centre. I represent a suburban electoral district of, or riding as we call it here, of about 110,000 people. And at age 31 years old, I am the youngest elected woman to Ontario's 42nd Parliament. I was first elected at 29 years old, and my journey into politics was not an easy one, with numerous bumps on the road. Still, as one of 49 sitting women in the provincial parliament, I am a minority compared to 75 sitting men. This means that very often I am the only woman present at the table where important discussions and decisions are being made. This means that I often get asked, "Who do you work for?" when I enter the room, because others assume that someone who looks like me cannot possibly hold elected office. These are internal and inherent biases that are very common and deeply entrenched in our society. But how important is it that there is at least that one woman's voice at that table, and that other young women see themselves represented and reflected when they look at the composition of Ontario's 42nd Parliament? It is invaluable. But today, I would like to speak to you about finding solutions to the issues that affect us, such as the issue of unequal participation of women in politics around the world. This is what political participation means to me, a way of finding solutions to improve the lives of those who are affected. As politicians, we do this through legislation and through other means, with today's conference being an excellent example of how connecting with others can be an essential message for change. There is power in dialogue, in the act of reaching out and attempting to understand each other just a little bit better. Each conversation, each meeting brings us closer to where we need to be. Look at us here today, joined through the power of technology as a global community of women seeking equality and improvements of our communities. There is no reason why borders or distance have to stand in the way of communication, particularly as we find ourselves amid a global pandemic, as we can all use the power of technology to be joined in a worldwide community. Change requires a lot of determination, as nothing meaningful occurs overnight, even if it sometimes seems that way to casual observers. When I started on my political participation journey, I certainly did not start it from a position of power. I was in a new country with few connections and not speaking the language. My family was going through personal and financial struggles, as I am sure many immigrant families can relate. Yet, it was in that environment that I found my strength and my purpose. I learned that to achieve anything, I must connect with like-minded individuals, making small steps towards my goal through hard work, even if the finish line was nowhere in sight. I completed 2 degrees on my journey and became a community organizer, an activist, a fundraiser, and a public speaker. I am also proud to say that I have many wonderful women colleagues who serve with me in Parliament, with 39.5% of our legislature being women who work day in and day out to improve the laws in our province. Yet, like my own journey, there still lies a long road ahead for the work of equality. One of the many issues I devote my political career to, along with my callings, is combating the scourge that is human trafficking or violence against women. It troubles me to know that even in a country like Canada, girls as young as 13 are exposed into a world of manipulation and exploitation. Crimes and violence against women do not stop there, of course. Through the Me Too movement, we are learning how sexual harassment is prevalent in all occupations and that the vast majority of cases go underreported. Having a look globally, there are still many countries where women have no legal protection against domestic violence, and millions of girls are married as children per year. The worst atrocities occur in war zones around the world, which are hotspots of rape and violence. However, as we know, we still need to do a lot more work with human trafficking. I am happy to speak from the Ontario government that we have made innovative steps to engage with young people and understand how human trafficking happens so we can stop it before it begins. Resources are part of our government's work, which includes a $307 million comprehensive anti-human trafficking plan. Our government has launched 2 educational resources to help prevent human trafficking by teaching kids how to recognize if a trafficker targets them and make sure they know where to get help. We have come a long way, but our journey is far from over. This is why I invite you to take a seat at the table, to have your voice heard, and to play a role in building our future. As women, we have responsibility to each other, but more importantly, we have a responsibility to ourselves to fight inequity wherever it lies. Be satisfied that knowing one day we can look back, knowing we came together to do what was right, fighting the good fight, and making the world a better place than when we found it. I leave here today with a quote from my role model, Marie Curie, who was Polish, by the way. Life is not easy for any of us, but what of that? We must have perseverance and above all, confidence in ourselves. We must believe that we are gifted for something and that this thing must be attained. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
I am very happy to be here today. I really thank the Justina Mutali Foundation for inviting me to this prestigious summit. I'd like to share with you today too some African traditional strategies that can help promote gender equality, which we're already using at the local levels. A boy is born in a village in Ghana, and the Akan language says, Wawonipa, she has given birth to a human being. She, the mother, has given birth to a human being, and is said with a lot of joy and celebration. When a baby girl is born, she doesn't receive that kind of announcement, nor does she get that kind of celebration. What does that tell us? Men and boys are superior in value, human value, to women and girls. Men and boys are 100% full human beings, and women and their girls are not 100% full human beings. These are serious implications for the struggle for gender equality. Let me share with you 2 or 3 serious implications of this. The justification, the impunity and perpetration of gender-based violence and discrimination against women and girls from womb to tomb. A baby can be killed in the womb because she's a girl. The preference is for a boy. Then, when women and girls access to leadership, assets, ownership, power, even to participate fully in governance or in public spheres of development, is practically limited or even nil. Now, an area we can see this playing out at the moment, in spite of all the efforts, clamor, enthusiasm of everybody, is gender pay equality. Gender pay equality now. How can we pay a woman, they peg it now at 100%, women receive 80% of whatever a man receives? It's normal. She is not full human being, worth 100%. So she cannot receive 100% full salary either. That's a case in point. But should we be discouraged? No. There is a world movement now that the status quo must change. Yes, the ILO spent 100 years trying to get equality going, but it's going to happen. The Me Too movement, the he for she men are galvanizing. We must make it. But to make it, culture and gender-driven challenges must be given culture and gender-driven solutions. How do we do that? We must put culture and gender at the center of gender equality struggle. We must now, our men must accept that they are equal partners, equal stakeholders in the issue. We are struggling with gender equality, and political will must be there, or else we cannot continue. We will not have any result. Why? Because we will continue to pursue gender equality with the lead of the men and society who have the same mindsets that distinguishes between the value of a woman and the value of a man. Therefore, on Africa, as I told you at the beginning, I co-authored a book with 2 African women on culture, gender, and African women leadership, in which 15 phenomenal African women leaders were featured. we discovered we could identify at least 7 strategies to mainstream gender equality, at least at the local level, with African people understanding it. I will share 2 with you. The age group system, we use it to socialize people from birth to death. Boys and girls together, we introduce it into the primary schools, teaching them about gender equality, about the quality of man, boy and girl in humanity, human value, they're equal. Then the other one is with governance. The dual sex governance of Africa, traditional Africa, meaning men and women shared power in governance and development. We introduced that local governments in some communities, primarily in a community called Umode community in southeastern Nigeria. And there, they're able to now put women in the cabinet. And they were able now to review their constitution to integrate women concerns. We do that. I must pay tribute to Dewdrop Foundation, a partner on the ground, helping us to do this. I will then end by making an appeal to all of you, asking a question. Can we really achieve gender equality without really reviewing the equation between women and men, boys and girls? Can we really achieve it without looking at the full human value gap? Human being gap. Full human being value gap between men and women and between boys and girls. Shouldn't we review that? Shouldn't we look at that equation very critically? I think we should. I thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Right. How brilliant this was. What an incredible first session we had so far. I'm gonna welcome back my colleagues Michelle and Mita to join me back on stage.
Hello.
Hello, Michelle. Hello, Mita.
Hi, Fatimata.
Hi, welcome back on stage. So I have a little question for you two ladies. What are your key takeaway from what you've seen and heard so far until now? We've heard from incredible speakers from various fields, from government officials to business leaders, discussing on the theme of leadership and the fight of gender equality. So what's your takeaway? What are the key messages that you're going home with today, this morning?
The key points for me were self-belief and confidence. I found that most of the panel highlighted this, that it's not about looking for women empowerment. It's actually seeing it within yourself and valuing yourself and seeing your talents and your skills, what you can offer. And then also broadening your network. The inside circle, so that could be your mother, your grandmother, your auntie, your sister, and then the external, where maybe if you want to go into politics, you want to be a lawyer, you need to go out there and look for someone. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a woman. So, Mr. Semet said that, look for a male figure that can encourage you. And we had a lot of different opinions, and they were all fantastic. And they gave us a lot of wisdom. Also about the equal pay and human rights, we've got a long way to go. And that's across the spectrum in many countries. So those were the key things that were highlighted for me. I'm not too sure what Mita wants to also say, but those are the key points for myself.
That's very well put in a nutshell, Michelle. Yes, I do agree with you, and my thoughts resonate with yours as well. It reminds me of a quote by Ruth Ginsburg Bader Ginsburg about the fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. This is what she said on leadership. So every speaker we had in the morning were talking about charity starts at home. We need to think about ourselves as leaders to make the change, whether in the community, because not everyone is in a privileged position. Many of the people are in a position that they need to fight at the lowest level. But keep your eyes and ears open and see that you are first and foremost, as the human rights video said as well, a human being, and you have equal rights, and you can perhaps do better than boys. So the way the preconditioning is done from childhood in many cultures, it shouldn't affect you. And just giving my example, I did every other thing my brother did. He's a space scientist. I became a physicist. I flew a plane. I became a television producer. And I was the first ever chaplain recruited by my university in its 50 years. And so it's, you have to start it. You have to take the lead. And that's what all our speakers said, that we can't come from a point of trying to prove, because if you try to prove, you will probably waste your time. Instead, becoming is what even Michelle Obama said. Becoming is important. If you don't try to prove anything, then you become what you want to become. And so I think, it was fantastic. And we are going to have some very interesting and incredible speakers in the afternoon as well.
Yes,
absolutely. Thank you very much, ladies. And I completely agree with you. And I want to add to that, as women and young girls, we need to be our own sources of inspiration. We need to believe in ourselves, in our capacities, that we can be that thing that we desire to be and go after it. And so with this said, ladies and gents, we will now take a little break, and we will be back in an hour. Now, when we do come back, your host this afternoon will be Mita Joshi, that you have just met, who is a board member at the Justina Mutale Foundation. Now, before you go anywhere, I want to add that we have many surprises for you this afternoon. You don't want to miss it, because we have the best of the best for you, including heads of state. So we have more heads of state coming up this afternoon, more business leaders, more education specialists, more human rights activists. And of course, we have young speakers, including young school girls going to school. And you don't want to miss this afternoon as we are continuing this important conversation. So stay tuned. Continue the conversation on social media, and see you in 1 hour. Thank you very much.